I knew something was wrong the moment my keycard didn't work at the office door. 10 years of arriving at 7:30 a.m., same routine, same side entrance that avoided the crowded lobby. 10 years of being the first one in, brewing coffee for the entire floor. Now I was standing outside like a stranger, watching my breath form clouds in the December air. My name is Michael Chin, 42 years old, co-founder of Digital Nova Solutions. I started the company with my college roommate, Derek Thompson, back in 2014. We built it from nothing, just 2 desks in his garage and a shared dream of creating enterprise software that actually made sense. Now we had 47 employees, offices in Seattle and Austin, and contracts with Fortune 500 companies. I tried my keycard again. The little light flashed red. Denied. I pulled out my phone and called Derek. Straight to voicemail. I texted him at the office. Keycard not working. What's going on? I waited 5 minutes. No response. I walked around to the main entrance, nodded at the building security guard who recognized me, and took the elevator to our floor. The glass doors to our office were still locked. It was early, but through them, I could see Megan from HR already at her desk. She looked up, saw me, and her face changed. Not surprise. Something else. Discomfort. Guilt. She got up slowly, came to the door, and let me in. Morning, Michael, she said, not meeting my eyes. Morning. Keycard issue. Any idea what's going on? She hesitated. You should probably talk to Derek. He's in early today in the conference room. That was unusual. Derek was never early. That was our dynamic. I was the disciplined one who handled operations, client relationships, and made sure deadlines were met. Derek was the visionary, the sales guy, the one with big ideas who rolled in around 10 a.m. with coffee and enthusiasm. I walked down the hallway past the standing desks and beanbags we'd installed during our cool startup phase. Past the framed article from TechCrunch about our series of funding. Past the wall of client logos we'd acquired over the years. Derek was sitting at the head of the conference table with 2 people I didn't recognize. Men in suits. Not our usual tech company casual vibe. Michael, Derek said, standing. No smile. I wasn't expecting you so early. My regular time, I said. Who are your friends? This is Martin Blake and Edward Lewis, he said, gesturing to the suits. Legal counsel. I felt a weight in my stomach. Legal counsel for what exactly? Derek glanced at the men, then back at me. For the transition we discussed. We didn't discuss any transition. Martin, the older of the 2 lawyers, cleared his throat. Perhaps we should give you 2 a moment. No, Derek said quickly. We need to do this now. Michael, please sit down. I remained standing. What's going on, Derek? He pushed a folder across the table. The board voted yesterday. We're restructuring the company. Your position is being eliminated. I stared at him. The board? You mean you and me? We're the board. Not anymore, Derek said. We brought on new investors 3 months ago. They have board seats now. Without telling me? I'm the CFO. I'm your co-founder. It's all legal, Edward, the younger lawyer, chimed in. The paperwork was filed properly. I picked up the folder but didn't open it. So you've been planning this? For how long? Derek at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. It's not personal, Michael. The company needs to move in a new direction. Your approach is too conservative. The investors want growth, innovation, risk-taking. My approach kept us profitable for 10 years, I said quietly. My approach built our reputation for reliability. And we're grateful, Derek said, not sounding grateful at all. The severance package is generous. 6 months salary, health benefits, stock options you've already vested. Stock options that will be worthless if you run this company into the ground with your innovation, I said. The room went silent. Through the glass walls, I could see employees arriving, glancing curiously at our meeting. Your access has been revoked, Derek continued, all business now. Email, systems, building. We'll have someone pack up your office and deliver your personal items. Just like that? 10 years erased? The company's moving in a new direction, Michael. I'm sorry. I looked at the man I'd built a company with. My college roommate. The best man at my wedding. The godfather to my daughter. Now a stranger in an expensive suit with rehearsed lines. You'll regret this, I said quietly. Derek's face hardened. Don't make threats, Michael. It's beneath you. I placed the folder back on the table unopened. It's not a threat. It's a prediction. I turned and walked out past the gathering employees who quickly averted their eyes, past Megan from HR who looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words, through the glass doors that had my name etched on them alongside Derek's. Founded by Derek Thompson and Michael Chin, 2014, and into the elevator. In the lobby, I stopped and pulled out my phone. I didn't call my wife, though I probably should have. Instead, I opened an app I'd never expected to use this way, our company's administrative dashboard, because here's what Derek didn't know, what he'd forgotten in his rush to push me out. I'd built our systems from the ground up. I was the one who understood our infrastructure, who had set up the backups, who had created the admin accounts, and in all the access Derek thought he'd revoked, he'd missed something critical. I still had God mode admin access to everything. Every system. Every server. Every email. Every file. I put my phone away and walked out into the cold Seattle morning. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt focused, like a chess player seeing 5 moves ahead. Derek wanted to play games? Fine. But he'd forgotten who wrote the rulebook. The first thing you need to understand about me, I don't act on emotion. Never have. My parents taught me that growing up in their small restaurant in San Francisco, when a customer yells, when a supplier shorts you, when the health inspector shows up on your busiest day, you smile, you think, and you plan. So I didn't go home and rage. I didn't drink myself into oblivion. I didn't call Derek and scream threats. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop across town, one where I wouldn't run into any coworkers, and I thought, Derek had been planning this for months. The new investors. The board restructuring. The new direction talk. I'd noticed changes, of course. Secret meetings he wouldn't tell me about. New hires I hadn't approved. But I trusted him. Mistake number 1. I ordered a black coffee and opened my personal laptop. First things first, I needed to document everything before Derek realized his mistake and cut off my hidden admin access. I logged into our system through a backdoor I'd created years ago during a security upgrade. Not for nefarious purposes, it was a standard practice to ensure we always had emergency access if primary systems failed. Derek never understood the technical details. He just knew things worked. The admin panel showed me everything. Every login. Every file transfer. Every email sent on company servers. I started with the board documents. Just as Derek had said, 3 new investors had been brought on 3 months ago: Velocity Capital, Hawthorne Investments, and someone named Jason Mercer. Together, they now controlled 51% of the company, except that wasn't legally possible. Our founding documents required both founders to approve any equity dilution. I'd never signed anything. I dug deeper. Found the documents. And there was my signature authorizing the sale of new shares that diluted my ownership stake below controlling interest. Except it wasn't my signature. Not quite. Whoever had forged it had missed the slight curve I always put in my C, the way I crossed my T's slightly above the line. I took screenshots, downloaded documents, saved emails. An hour turned into 3 as I followed the digital trail. Derek hadn't just been planning to remove me. He'd been systematically undermining me for over a year. Emails to clients suggesting I was holding back innovation. Notes from meetings I wasn't invited to. A presentation to the new investors titled Growth Strategies Post-Restructuring dated 6 months ago. My coffee went cold as I uncovered more. There were emails about a new product line Derek was developing secretly, something called Nova AI, that was apparently going to revolutionize our business. There were communications with a competitor discussing strategic partnership opportunities after certain organizational changes. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife, Rachel. Everything okay? You're usually at work by now. I realized I hadn't told her yet. How do you text? I just got forced out of the company I built, between pickup milk and how was your day? Need to talk when you're free, I replied. Something's happened. I kept digging. Found the severance agreement Derek had tried to hand me. It wasn't just a payoff, it was a gag order. I would be prohibited from speaking to any employees, clients, or partners. Would surrender all intellectual property. Would agree not to work in the same industry for 3 years. It was designed to silence me and eliminate me as competition. Another hour passed. Coffee shop patrons came and went. I barely noticed, too absorbed in uncovering the extent of the betrayal. Then I found something that made me stop: financial records. Transfers. Large sums of money moving from our corporate accounts to a shell company called Thompson Innovations LLC. Derek's personal venture, undisclosed to me or the company, receiving what looked like, "Oh, Derek," I whispered. "What have you done?" He'd been embezzling. Not small amounts either. Over $2.7 million in the past year, disguised as consulting fees and research partnerships. Money from the company we'd built together, siphoned into his personal projects. I downloaded everything, organized it meticulously in encrypted folders, and backed it up to secure cloud storage. Then I closed my laptop and finally called Rachel. "Michael?" She answered immediately. What's going on? I need to meet with Harold, I said, referring to our personal attorney. Can you set it up? Today, if possible. Michael, you're scaring me. What happened? I took a deep breath. Derek locked me out of the company, but he made a mistake. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Harold Robertson's office, watching his expression change from concern to shock to calculated interest as I explained the situation and showed him what I'd found. This is extensive, Harold said, scrolling through the documents. The forgery alone is criminal. The embezzlement? That's federal prison time. I don't want him in prison, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. I want control of my company back. Harold leaned back in his chair. What's your play here, Michael? Go to the police? Sue. I shook my head. Not yet. First, I need to understand exactly what he's doing with this Nova AI project, and who these investors really are. Something doesn't add up. And your admin access? How long before they realize you still have it? Not long, I admitted. A day, maybe 2. So I need to work fast. Harold nodded slowly. I'll start preparing legal options. But Michael, be careful. Don't do anything that could be construed as unauthorized access or corporate espionage. I'm not doing anything unauthorized, I said. I'm a founder with legitimate admin privileges that were never properly revoked. I'm investigating financial irregularities in a company where I'm still legally an officer. Harold smiled slightly. Keep thinking like that. Now go home to Rachel and get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. But I didn't rest. That night, after explaining everything to Rachel, after reassuring our confused 12-year-old daughter that everything was fine, after lying awake next to my sleeping wife, I got up at 3 a.m. and went back to work. Because something was bothering me about those investors. Something familiar. I pulled up the documents again. Velocity Capital was a real venture firm. I'd heard of them. But Hawthorne Investments? Jason Mercer? I searched for information online and found almost nothing. Generic websites. No portfolio companies listed. No press releases older than 3 months. They were shells. Fronts. But for what? I dug back into the company systems, looking at email communications between Derek and these investors. Their domain names were registered recently. Their IP addresses traced back to unusual locations. And then I found it. An email from Derek to someone named Victor Petrov, with a subject line, Hawthorne setup complete. I clicked on it. Victor shell companies are in place. Michael suspects nothing. Once the acquisition is complete, you'll have all the IP as discussed. Acquisition? What acquisition? I searched more emails, more documents. Found a draft of an agreement between Digital Nova Solutions and a company I'd never heard of, Zenith Technology Group. The terms were clear. Once the restructuring was complete, our entire intellectual property portfolio would be sold to Zenith for a fraction of its market value. I searched for Zenith Technology Group online and felt my blood run cold. They were one of our biggest competitors' parent companies, based in a country known for corporate espionage and IP theft. This wasn't just about pushing me out. Derek was selling our technology we'd spent 10 years building. To foreign competitors, I picked up my phone to call Harold, then stopped. It was 4 a.m., and I needed more than suspicions. I needed proof that would stand up in court. I went back to the emails, the financial records, piecing together the conspiracy. By dawn, I had a clear picture. Derek had been approached by Zenith a year ago, offered millions to facilitate the acquisition of our technology. The shell investors were just a mechanism to dilute my ownership and remove me as an obstacle. The embezzlement was Derek's personal payment. The new direction was a cover story. My co-founder wasn't just betraying me. He was betraying our entire company, our employees, our country. As the sun rose, I made 3 calls. One to Harold, one to a cybersecurity expert I trusted, and one to a friend at the FBI who specialized in corporate espionage. It was time to spring the trap. You need to be very careful now, warned Sarah Kim, my FBI contact, as we sat in a secure meeting room at their Seattle field office. This is no longer just about corporate politics. This is potentially about national security. It was the afternoon after my discovery, and I'd spent the morning briefing Sarah, her colleague Agent Rollins, and Harold on everything I'd found. "We've been tracking Zenith for years," Rollins said, a serious man with a military haircut. "Their acquisition strategy often involves questionable methods. But this would be brazen, even for them. The question is what you want to do, Michael," Sarah said. "We can build a case, but it will take time. Meanwhile, they could strip your company bare." I looked at Harold, who nodded encouragingly. "I want to catch them in the act," I said. "Not just Derek, but the Zenith people too. And I want to do it in a way that saves the company." "You have something in mind," Sarah observed. "I do. Derek thinks he's won. He thinks I'm finished. But I still have that admin access, and he's planning to meet with Zenith representatives next week to finalize the deal." I laid out my plan. It was risky. It would require the FBI's cooperation and split-second timing. But if it worked, we'd catch everyone involved. Sarah and Rollins exchanged looks. "It could work," Rollins admitted reluctantly. "But you'd be putting yourself in a vulnerable position." "I built that company from nothing," I said. "I'm not walking away and letting Derek sell it to foreign interests. Not without a fight." After 2 more hours of discussion, refining the plan, and setting up secure communications, we had our strategy. The FBI would monitor everything, gather evidence, and be ready to move when the time came. That night, I told Rachel everything. "This is dangerous," she said, holding my hand tightly across our kitchen table. "These people aren't playing games." "Neither am I," I replied. "But I need you to know everything in case things go sideways." She squeezed my hand. "Just promise me you'll be careful." "I promise." The next morning, I sent Derek a text. "We should talk. Coffee? Tomorrow?" His reply came quickly. "Nothing to discuss. Review the severance papers with your lawyer." Perfect. He was confident, dismissive, exactly where I wanted him. For the next 5 days, I worked from home, monitoring company systems through my hidden access. I watched as Derek prepared for the Zenith meeting, scheduled for Thursday in our main conference room. Watched him reassure nervous employees about the transition. Watched him transfer more company files to servers where they could be easily accessed by the investors. On Wednesday night, I activated the first part of my plan. Using my admin access, I created a new permission setting in our system, one that would allow me to grant or revoke access to specific files at specific times. Then I planted a small piece of code in our main server that would activate when certain conditions were met on Thursday morning. I dressed in my best suit. Not for a coffee shop this time. I was going back to the office. I timed it perfectly, arriving at 9:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the Zenith meeting was scheduled to begin. The security guard in the lobby recognized me. "Mr. Chun, haven't seen you in a while." "Been working remotely," I said with a smile. "Is the visitor from Zenith here yet?" "I'm supposed to join the meeting." "Yes, sir, just arrived." "Shall I call up to let them know you're coming?" "No need," I said. "I want to surprise them." The guard nodded and let me through. As I rode the elevator up, I sent a text to Sarah. "Going in." The response came immediately. "Teams in position. Be careful." When the elevator doors opened on our floor, I walked confidently to the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see Derek, the 2 lawyers from last week, and 3 people I didn't recognize. The Zenith representatives. I pushed open the door. The conversation stopped mid-sentence. 6 heads turned toward me. Derek's face went from confusion to anger to fear in the span of seconds. "Michael," he said, standing quickly, "this is a private meeting. You're not authorized to be here." I smiled pleasantly. "Actually, Derek, I think I am. After all, I'm still a founder of this company. Still a board member. Technically, since you forged my signature on those dilution documents." The Zenith representatives exchanged glances. The oldest of them, a distinguished man in his 60s, raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Thompson," he said with a slight accent, "you assured us all parties had agreed to this acquisition." "They have," Derek said quickly. "Michael is just bitter. Security will remove him shortly." "Before they do," I said, taking out my phone. "I thought you might be interested in some files." I tapped the screen, activating my planted code. "I've just granted everyone in this room access to a special folder on our server. Why don't you take a look?" Despite Derek's protests, curiosity won out. The Zenith representatives and the lawyers pulled out their devices. Within seconds, their expressions changed as they opened the files I'd made available. Financial records showing Derek's embezzlement. Emails discussing the fraudulent board restructuring. Communications with Zenith planning the undervalued sale of our technology. And most damaging of all, a recording of Derek explicitly discussing how the shell investors were a front to push me out. "This meeting is over," the lead Zenith representative said coldly, standing. "Mr. Thompson, you assured us this was a legitimate transaction. We do not involve ourselves in corporate theft or fraud." "It's not what it looks like," Derek stammered. "Michael has fabricated." "I haven't fabricated anything," I said calmly. "Every document is authentic. Every recording untampered with. And right now, the FBI is outside with warrants for anyone who attempts to complete this transaction." As if on cue, the conference room door opened again. Sarah and Rollins entered, flanked by 4 more agents. "Gentlemen," Sarah said, showing her badge. "FBI. We'd like to ask you some questions about Zenith Technology Group and its acquisition practices." What followed was chaos. The lawyers tried to leave but were blocked. The Zenith representatives demanded to call their attorneys. Derek sat down heavily in his chair, all color drained from his face. I walked over to him while the FBI agents dealt with the others. "Why?" I asked simply. 10 years, Derek. We built this together." He couldn't meet my eyes. "They offered me $20 million. My own division to run. No more answering to investors or worrying about payroll." "So you sold out our employees? Our clients?" "Me?" He finally looked up. "You don't understand, Michael. You've always been content with steady growth, reliable products. I wanted more. Deserved more. And now you'll get nothing." As the FBI led everyone out for questioning, employees gathered in the hallway watching in confusion and shock. Megan from HR approached me hesitantly. "Michael, what's happening?" I took a deep breath. It was time to start rebuilding. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, FBI interviews, and company-wide damage control. The story broke in the tech press. Digital Nova co-founder arrested in corporate espionage scheme. Our stock took an immediate hit, but we survived. The board restructuring was ruled fraudulent. The investors disappeared when their shell nature was exposed. Derek faced multiple federal charges: wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to steal trade secrets. He eventually took a plea deal that included full restitution to the company and a 5-year prison sentence. The Zenith representatives claimed they were unaware of the fraud, that they believed the acquisition was legitimate. Maybe that was true, maybe not. Either way, they returned to their country empty-handed, under close scrutiny from international business authorities. And me? I returned as CEO of Digital Nova Solutions. The first all-hands meeting after the dust settled was tense. Employees had questions, doubts. Trust had been broken. I stood before them in our largest conference room, every chair filled, more people standing along the walls. "I won't pretend the last month has been easy," I began. "What Derek did hurt all of us. He betrayed this company, the company we all built together. But Digital Nova is more than one person. It's more than me. It's all of us." I looked around the room at the faces of people who had come to work each day not knowing if they'd still have jobs the next week, who had watched their leaders publicly implode, who deserved better. "I failed you too," I continued. "I didn't see what was happening. I trusted without verifying. That changes today." I outlined my plan for the company: new governance structures with better oversight, an employee representative on the board, transparency in all major decisions, and most importantly, a renewed focus on what had made us successful: building reliable, innovative software that solved real problems for our clients. "We're going to rebuild trust," I told them. "With each other, with our clients, with the market. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen." After the meeting, Megan approached me. "That day when you first came in," she said, "when Derek had locked you out, I knew something was wrong. I should have said something." I shook my head. "You were put in an impossible position. We all were." "Still," she insisted, "I'm sorry." "No apologies needed," I said. "We're moving forward now." And we did. Slowly, painfully at times, but we moved forward. 6 months later, our stock had recovered. We'd retained most of our clients, who appreciated our transparency about what had happened. We'd even launched a new cybersecurity product inspired, ironically, by the very vulnerabilities Derek had exploited. The Nova AI project Derek had been secretly developing turned out to be mostly smoke and mirrors, PowerPoint slides and mock-ups designed to impress Zenith. There was no revolutionary technology. Just another lie. 1 year to the day after being locked out of my company, I sat in my office, the same office I'd had for years, though I'd redecorated to remove the memories of that time. Rachel had brought lunch, a rare treat in our busy schedules. "Did you ever think we'd be here?" she asked, gesturing around the office. After that day? I thought about it. Honestly? Yes. I knew it would be hard. I knew it would hurt. But I never doubted we'd find a way through. "Because you still had admin access," she said with a small smile. That helped, I admitted. But it was more than that. It was knowing this company, these people, were worth fighting for. My computer pinged with a calendar alert. "Board meeting in 15 minutes, our newly constituted board with proper governance and oversight." "Duty calls," Rachel said, standing and gathering our lunch containers. "Dinner at home tonight?" "Wouldn't miss it, I promise." As she left, I looked around my office at the company I'd nearly lost and fought to restore. The betrayal had been painful, but in some ways, Digital Nova was stronger for having survived it. Derek had thought he could erase 10 years of partnership with a single decision. He'd underestimated me, yes, but more than that, he'd underestimated what we had built together. The company structures, the employee loyalty, the client relationships, and most critically, he'd underestimated the importance of understanding the systems you're trying to control. I closed my laptop, straightened my tie, and headed to the board meeting. Not as a man fighting to reclaim what was taken, but as a leader who had learned a valuable lesson. Trust is essential, but verification is non-negotiable, and always keep a backup plan.